And we are live. It's the Revved Up 906 podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. And I'm Hudson.
And I'm Ryan.
And we are recording on November 6th, Wednesday night. And if you guys paid attention to the Charlotte Hornets game against the Detroit Pistons, you may know the pain that most fans and commentators are going through right now. The Pistons competed great against the Charlotte Hornets, but they came up short due to a Brandon Miller tap in at the buzzer to win the game. And Ryan, it's kind of nice recording at night, especially after a game, because we can kind of talk about the specific games before we get into the tough topics. But Ryan, we saw a Pistons team compete at all four levels, find buckets around the 3 point line and at the rim. And then we see Jalen Duren get hurt in the early first quarter. 63 minutes in, he messes up his ankle a little bit. Maybe it's a tweak, maybe it's something more serious. Time will tell as the days go forward. But the Pistons are finding themselves competing in a lot of these games this season, but just falling short there in the fourth quarter. And that's why we want to talk about today the Pistons and trying to find their way to wins. When they are winning, what statistics really stand out? What are they doing right when they're winning? What maybe they're falling short on when they are losing these games? Because what we've seen with this Detroit Pistons team, Ryan, is they're shooting efficiently. And with they're not, it doesn't really determine a game for them. It's the little things that are proving to be a big thing for the Detroit Pistons so far. So Ryan, when looking at a tough loss like we had against the Charlotte Hornets, but then going on a 2 game winning streak against LA and the Sixers, those are two great, like, just spirit wins for this Detroit Pistons team. What kind of stands out to you when the Pistons are thriving and on the winning side and when they're falling short? What are some of those little details that you see?
So for me, it's when we're winning, it's ball movement. Ball movement is great. We're not turning the
Totally.
ball over left and right. We're taking good shots and not forcing anything up. We're not forcing any passes when there shouldn't be a pass. Everybody is communicating and talking on defense. Like, just winning basketball is pretty much what we're winning with right now. But again, like you have other guys stepping up that typically wouldn't step up. And then you have the additions of the vets with Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley. All three of those guys in particular are bringing us winning basketball. Obviously, tonight, Tobias didn't shoot the ball great. He hasn't shot the ball great the last couple of nights out. And then same with Malik. Malik has been hit or miss the last couple of nights out too. Same with Tim Hardaway Jr. So pretty much those three have struggled from time to time the last couple of games. But again, I think it's just because they're actually in situations where they are the primary offensive player at that moment in time. I think JB Bickerstaff is leaning on them a little bit more than what he would with Jaden Ivey and others. Even, and now that sounds crazy, but at times you kind of have to lean on your bets, no matter what. But to me, when they're winning, good things are happening from the not turning the ball over, taking good shots. All those little things are going right when the Pistons are winning. And all those things, all those same things lead to the Pistons losing too. There's been countless games where they're in the double digits for both turnovers and fouls. And in today's game, you have to do the little things. You can't turn the ball over. If you turn
Mm-hmm.
the ball over, you lose. And it doesn't even matter what sport you're in. It could be football, it could be hockey, it could be whatever it is. If you turn the ball over or the puck over, that was a weird analogy that I used, but if you turn anything over, you're gonna lose. You have to protect the puck, the ball, whatever it may be at all times. And that's been pretty much the nail in the coffin for the Pistons this year is protecting the ball.
Oh yeah.
That was one of our good quotes from last year from you on we need to protect the ball. Same
Yeah.
things apply this year. We got to protect the ball. If we can't do that, we can't win. And that's the bottom line. So that's the big statistic. If you were to really throw anything out there is turnovers and fouls. And then obviously protecting the ball, getting good shots up, and communicating on defense is a big thing too. But that's what I would stick out.
Well, something that was a big struggle for the Detroit Pistons last year was getting through the third quarter and not having a 5, 6 minute drought where they've only put up 5 points or whatever that might be. It can be very difficult when you go through the last couple stretches of a game and you're not putting up points. That's just a team catching you. It just doesn't look good. And one thing that we saw with the Pistons when they played the Lakers and got that really big statement win is the only quarter they got outscored was the third quarter, and it was only by 8 points. All other three quarters, they had 30 or more points. They were scoring buckets in the big way. And I think we see it where Cade, obviously, Jay and Ivy, they've taken that next step that we were maybe hoping for. They're looking great. They're playing well together. They're sharing the ball while also getting their own. But like you said, it's those vets that took away those cold streaks, those drastic cold streaks that we saw last season and why the Pistons lost so many games. Now we have Tobias Harris and Blake Beasley is a huge one tonight against the Charlotte Hornets. Tim Hardaway Jr. played a great way in the second half to kind of slow down those cold streaks. When you have 3-point shooters like that, that know how to control themselves, they don't take those bad, arid shots. They pull themselves together. They make that extra step, create that space, and get that shot up. And they're making them more than most. And I think that's great for this Pistons team. And like the Pistons could easily be looking at 4 wins right now. They just, didn't get that rebound at the end to solidify that Charlotte Hornets game. And it's those little things, like you mentioned before, that those last couple of minutes in the fourth quarter. And I think JB is a great in-game adjuster. Like for him in this fourth quarter, it was the last minute. They took Cade out because he had 5 fouls. And they're like, well, if we need that game-winning shot, we need Cade in. We can't afford him to go and get LaMelo Ball at the half court for that foul to put him at the free throw line. It just is a bad look. And I think JB was within himself or has good assistants to be calling him out for those things. Like, hey, got to get Cade out. Like, those are things that we haven't seen by coaches of the Pistons in the last couple of years. Like those really just savvy moves that just makes JB look like a genius because we haven't had that in the past years. It's also obviously bench play is huge. Like when we played against the Lakers, maybe Simone didn't show up. Like he didn't show up that game. But then we had Malik Beasley showing up against the Lakers and just playing well. And Ron Holland had a big impact versus the Charlotte Hornets. He had started 2 for 2 from a 3-point line. Before that, first couple of games, he went 1 of 16 from the 3-point line. And then he's trying to kind of fix that curve a little bit. Ryan, I think it's important to see Ron Holland kind of make these steps. Do you equip that to coaching, getting used to the speed of the game? What are your thoughts on why we're kind of seeing Ron Holland make these right decisions as he's kind of moving on through the season?
I mean, if you look back at last year, he was at G League Ignite. That's a completely different brand of basketball than what he was used to. He came into that no experience at the college level, straight out of high school, and that team last year was not good. Obviously, they had Montas Bazulis, they had Ron Holland, they had multiple draft picks on that team, but that team just was not good still. Sometimes you can have great players but have a bad team, and that team was bad. They dealt with a lot of injuries too. And so he had a lot of growing pains. He went from being the guy that could just focus on himself and do everything in his power to win the games. And then he had to take on a whole new role and be not only focus on himself, but focus on the team and be a true leader and take on certain responsibilities that he's never had to take on before. And I think all of those experiences, even though they were terrible last year, including with what JB has instilled in him, from training camp and summer league till now. I think JB and then what he had to deal with last year, all combining into one, is starting to solidify himself more out there on the court. Just from the aspect of, okay, JB's like, okay, looking down his bench, who am I going to put in right now? Am I going to put in Simone Fontecchio, or am I going to put in Ron Holland? Simone's been on a cold streak shooting. Defensively, he's a big help for us. But is he going to be fouling right away, or like what are we going to do there? But Ron Holland he's scrappy, but he knows how to play defense. He's not going to have a costly foul at any point in time. So these are the kind of things that JB's looking at, and Ron Holland's fitting that mold. Just because of what JB has kind of prioritized in developing his game since he's come to Detroit, and then even the experiences that he had last year with Ignite, and just the countless experiences before that. And then you throw in the vets, like we mentioned, Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, all three of them are helping out with Ron Holland here. Paul Reed, same thing. Like countless guys on this team, I think, are help guide and make a change with Ron Holland right before our eyes, something that we hadn't seen in the past. Because like last year, I mean, Asar Thompson never had that. He never had a group of vets that actually wanted to help. Where, no offense to Bojan, but Bojan did not want to help. He'd rather focus on his game and take his own shot than help develop Asar Thompson or Marcus Sasser. He didn't want to be really necessarily a part of that. Alec Burks did, but Alec Burks can only do so much. So what Ron Holland and then Bobby Clinton and Dennis Jenkins and like all these guys are starting to get is they're getting vets that are trying to invest in them. And they're getting a coach in JB Bickerstaff who's trying to invest in them. Like Asar Thompson, excuse me, didn't get that out of Monty Williams. Monty Williams did not want to be there no matter what. He's not going to invest in a rookie and help him out in that regard. So I really think what it comes down to is Ron Holland has like through the roof potential. He has to get there, obviously. There has to be a lot of work in that. But the vets coming in and help guide him and to go, and like Malik Beasley, like shooting wise, 40% career 3-point shooter. Definitely going to help out with Ron Holland and his 3-point shooting. And then Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. with countless other things. So I think it's really what it is that he's having these vets invest in him. He's having JV Bickerstaff invest in him. He's having pretty much the entire organization investing in him and his abilities and really trying to develop that in order to see what we have gotten now in just a short period of time. Because if you look back at the first game till now, it's a completely different Ron Holland. Like that game, you're going like, okay, I'm seeing flashes. Now it's like, okay, you can rely on him in a close game with like a minute left to go. Impact. You can rely on him, and he's an impact player. And so, yeah, I think the vets, the coaches, the entire organization, just investing in him and really trying to develop him along the way and relying on him in critical in-game situations, I think are the keys to why we're seeing him go from 1 of 9 to 2 of 2 in a span of 2 games. Like he's starting to look for certain shots in a different way because of the vets, because of the coaches, because of everyone. And that is a great thing to see.
Now, obviously, there's growing pains with this young Pistons team and trying to find their way to a win. But if Cade Cunningham keeps playing the way he has, the Pistons are going to find themselves winning a lot of games this year. He's had back-to-back double-doubles versus the Charlotte Hornets and the LA Lakers, 2 coaches that are hungry, trying to get their teams to wins, and he's just pounded them down, working through their game plan. And they double team him. They sometimes triple team him when he tries to get to the lane, and they can't stop him. He's finding everybody in the passing lane. He's just so active. There's a new energy to this Cade Cunningham that we kind of saw him finding last season, but he's unlocked a new energy that we just are seeing a new Cade Cunningham right now. And I'm so happy with his play. And I think he's going to be a triple double machine for a long time to come. I'm just very, very happy with his play. And when he's as active as he is, and he's just going to find some, pushing some win. When we brought in Jeremy Grant many years, not many years ago, but a couple of years ago to the Pistons, we were like, well, this is a guy, when you add him to the roster, you're going to get at least 12 wins because he's just that good. He's going to flip a game for you. Cade Cunningham is slowly getting there. And LaMelo Ball is obviously a great talent on the Charlotte Hornets. And when they would compete, they play 4 times a year. When they compete, LaMelo Ball always seemed like to kind of have the upper edge, and oh, LaMelo Ball's just killing us right now. But that's what we're seeing Cade Cunningham do to other teams right now. He's just being an absolute threat for this Pistons team, and teams are now forced to double team him and triple team him, because if they don't, he's going to put 50 on him like nothing. And I've just been so impressed with Cade this year, Ryan. It seems like at the end of last season, we were like, is he going to be able to be Batman, or is he going to be Robin? Is he going to take that next step? And to me, Ryan, he's taken a next step, or at least he's on that way. What are some of your thoughts there of what you've seen from Cade, and if it's going to start translating to some wins that rack up?
Every year we go into it thinking, can Cade get better than what he was at? And you look at his rookie year, he was great. Obviously, his second year didn't get to play a whole lot, out for the majority of the season, played 10 games because of the injury. But even that Cade versus year one Cade, it was a different Cade. And then last year, like, he took another step up from what we saw. And yet last year was probably the biggest question of them all, just because he was coming off that injury. What is he going to look like? Especially next to Jaden Ivey, because they hadn't had a full season together yet. So what is he going to look like next to Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, etc.? And then this year, now it's more so like, as you mentioned, is he Batman or is he Robin? And so far through the couple games that we've had, he is 100% Batman. He is not Robin anymore. And if he slows down, I'm still going to say he's not Batman per se if he slows down a little bit, but he's borderline Batman. Because the way he's playing, I mean, double doubles in consecutive games. Outside of that, like, not if you take the double doubles away, like, cool, those are amazing stats and everything to have in a box score. But he's being efficient with his shot selection. He's not forcing anything up that's not there. He's not forcing any passes that's not there. Like, his turnovers, like we mentioned a couple episodes ago, it was kind of concerning at times, but he's flipped the switch and now it's going back down, and he's making better passes, better decisions in just what, a 1-2 game span. And he's recognizing, okay, I made this mistake here. I need to fix that. And he's just building off that game by game, and it keeps getting better. So yeah, to me, he's definitely playing like a Batman. And that is exciting for me, just because, like, I didn't want to not call him Batman last year, but he just wasn't playing like it. But this year so far, in just a short span he has, but granted, there's a whole chunk of a season left to go. So who's to say he doesn't keep this up? But I think he will, just because of the mold of guys we have going in right now. And then JB Bickerstaff, I mean, he said it last game. He's going to keep saying it. He truly does believe that Cade can be not just a one-way player, but a two-way player, both offense and defense. And I completely agree with JB. I think Cade can be a great defender. I'm not saying he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Fame defender or anything, but he's going to be pretty darn good because he has the wingspan, he has the size, he has the speed. Obviously, he's not Jaden Ivey fast, but he's decently fast himself. So I think the jump between each season has been the most impressive thing to me, and hopefully he can keep this going on for the longevity of the rest of the season. But like, I am very much impressed right now, and you would be saying the same thing, and a lot of people are saying the same thing. Cade Cunningham is on another level versus the rest of this team, and that's crazy to say that, because like, Jaden Ivey is on another level right now. Jalen Duren, from an efficiency standpoint, is on another level right now. All these young guys are making a step up, But Cade, if you're going to look at it, compare these guys, like Jaden Ivey's step up versus Cade's step up, I'd say Cade's step up is like way up here. And Jaden Ivey, even though he had a huge step up, is probably down here still. So like if you were to compare it, that's how I would see it. But again, Cade has gotten better every single year, and he's just on a whole nother level right now.
So I wanted to take some time, and so I set aside some time today, and I was like, I want to look at the box scores of the 3 wins the Pistons had, see what that looks like. What statistics stand out? What did they, play so well in? What did they just kind of fall short of in those wins? And the biggest thing that stood out was the rebounds. In all 3 wins, they were, they had another double digit, extra rebounds than the opposing team. And that's a big thing for a couple of things, right? Because you have the most time of possession in that case, but then also you're controlling the pace of that game. Because then whether it's an offensive rebound or get that putback shot or reset the offense, or if you get that defensive rebound, you're able to set up the offense, whether give it to the outlet, let him take control, or push it down the court. That means that we are controlling what the opposing defense does, and that's a good thing. You want the opposing defense to have to either pull themselves back, control themselves, especially if they're a speedy defense, or make them get out and run. Let Jaden Ivey take that outlet and go. Let Ron Holland do that. Let Malik Beasley get out and run. Because if we're playing against some of these older teams like the Los Angeles Lakers, a lot of vets on that team, they simply just couldn't keep up with the Pistons. Like it really seemed like that to me. Like they weren't able to get out in transition. D'Angelo Russell, pretty good basketball player, but he's not like a super athletic guy. He wasn't able to keep up with Jaden Ivey. And Anthony Davis, did his own, but it wasn't anything too special. And LeBron James found himself on the bench a lot just because I don't think he could keep up with the Pistons. Obviously, he's difficult to guard, but I just think that he couldn't keep up in that transition defense. So I think it's interesting to see the rebound category go up and up and up because previously to Jalen Duren's stint with the Pistons, that was an issue. They couldn't get rebounds. Therefore, they couldn't control the pace of a game. They couldn't try to beat people on transition with the outlets. It just wasn't working. And so I think that it is great seeing Jalen Duren kind of find his place on the boards. We're seeing Isaiah Stewart kind of get better in that category. Tobias Harris is almost averaging double-digit rebounds right now. He's had a big impact in that category. And it seems with Tobias, he's struggling efficiency-wise, but then he's just a pro's pro. He's focusing on those small things, trying to make an impact on defense, get those rebounds, make the right pass. Because he knows he's struggling shooting and trying to get the ball in the basket, but he's just trying to let the game come to him. And it's obvious with Tobias, he makes those great decisions, and that helps big time in the rebounding category. Ryan, when thinking about, Pistons trying to get on the winning end of some of these games this season, what are some of your next thoughts on what's important for the Detroit Pistons to kind of excel at? Because their assists per games aren't too special. Their efficiency hasn't really mattered in the games they won. They didn't necessarily shoot really efficient. Like it's kind of interesting what goes into these stats when they do win, when they don't. What are some of those categories that you're thinking that maybe they could get a little bit better to start getting some wins?
Well, I mean, I said it earlier, turnovers and fouls. That's the biggest category of them all. That's something that they've really struggled with for the most part. When they lose, you look at those numbers in particular, you're like, okay, yep, that's why they lost the game. If you ever question it, that's why they lost. It has nothing to do with their shooting because actually, majority of the time, even though they're not shooting like, whoa, that's amazing, their shooting is still neck and neck with whoever they're playing. So like, it's not like they're shooting poorly because the other team is shooting just as good, if not worse. And so then it goes back to the turnovers and the fouls for me. Because like the other night against the Heat, like you look at the field goal percentage, it was like not even a point off of each other.
Yeah.
And so then you go like, okay, so then how did they lose that game? And then you look at the turnovers and fouls and you're like, okay, Miami only had like 9 turnovers. Yep, that makes sense. And then you look at what we had, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a big number. So really, it's that those two categories for me are the biggest. But you made note of this a minute ago, along the lines of our transition offense and just how we are with our speed and everything. We need to utilize that more. That's something that I have noticed in each of the games so far is when we slow the game down and try to be slow about it and try
Mhm.
to facilitate and move within an offense. Yes, I'm not saying plays are bad. Plays are great for the game of basketball. But with this young team, they're not old and lazy, or lazy is not the right word. They're not old and just slow. We are young and energetic. And I think if you have Jalen Duren hitting the glass, getting that board, moving that ball up the court in a very fast manner, you're having Jaden Ivey filling the lanes, flying down the court. You have Cade just dishing it. You have Ron Holland, Malik Beasley, etc. You have all these weapons around you where it seems like time and time again, any games that we are in control for the most part or winning, it's because we are flying up the court. It's not because we're slowing it down and just taking what's given to us. It's like we're just going no matter what. So I think we need to push the ball up the floor more, because that's like the biggest thing for me outside of the turnovers and fouls. And I know that's not a statistic or anything, but whenever we do that, we win. And so if and all those and that I will say does play in part with the turnovers and the fouls because I mean if we're playing that fast, yes, that can lead to more turnovers. But in a lot of those games when we're doing moving that fast, we're actually not turning the ball over that much. Because if you
Mhm.
pay attention close enough to the box score, you're not seeing like 5 turnovers on multiple different possessions when we're running the fast break. You're seeing at least 2, maybe 3 at times. That's it. And then even fouling, we're not fouling when we're up and we have a big lead because there's no point to do that necessarily. It's only when it comes down to the later stretch of the games that you start to pick up more fouls. Like tonight, like obviously it didn't go our way, but what led to it not going our way? Obviously, we're not protecting the ball at a higher level as we should have, and we're fouling a lot more than probably what we could be. So those two things for me is turnovers and fouls. Clean up those because I mean it's cleaner than it was last year, which is saying a lot. But you clean that up, those up even more, good things will happen.
Make sure to comment below your thoughts on when the Pistons play a certain way when they win, or what you see when they lose, and some of those constants that happen with each and every game. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And it was kind of fun to take some time to talk about what we want to see in Pistons wins, what we're seeing a tendency in Pistons losses. It's kind of cool to analyze, look at the box scores, and take some time to talk about it. If you're a diehard Detroit Pistons fan, you gotta love talking about the little details. And make sure to like and subscribe. And we will see you guys in episode 4 of season 3. Peace.